Welcome to Guess the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. Today we've got 5 deadheads from around the country competing for a prize pack provided by Bout Half Past Dead and a spot in next week's show. Bout Half Past Dead is run by Mike, another Mike. The brand aims to inject the Dead & Co. lot with a bit of radical spirit and politics of the 60s. In 2022, Bout Half Past Dead raised $18,000 for various mutual aid organizations, including abortion funds, housing and weapons training for trans people, and financial support for veterans of the Black Panthers. They do bumper stickers, shirts, pretty much everything you'd expect to see in the lot. They do it. Check them out on the lot this summer during the Dead & Co. tour. Also, all of the links will be in the show notes. As always, the prize pack provider was tapped by Mason, aka From the Lot. Thanks, Mason, and of course, thanks, Mike. Alright, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year their performance is from. Contestants, who are all on video chat to prevent any possibility of cheating, can submit their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last 2 deadheads standing will have a best of 3 series to determine a winner. We've got our 2-time returning champion Todd here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the deadheads in a moment. But first, let's hear the first song. Without further ado, The Grateful Dead. The Other One at Oakland Auditorium Arena on December 31st, 1980. Bob Weir and Phil Lesh claim the first performance of the song was coincidentally the night Neil Cassidy died, very early in the morning on February 4th, 1968. A coincidence because Neil is, of course, the other one. So, there are 2 people who are equally closest. It's our returning champion, Todd, who guessed 1981, and Joshua, who also guessed 1981. Let's meet Joshua real quick. Joshua is 19. He's from the Bay Area. Joshua, 1 year off on a tough 80s song. Congrats. You're on to the next round. What'd you hear there?
Well, it was honestly not too difficult. Pretty much determined by 2 things, and that's Brent's sound on the organ. There's like a really certain sound that he had when he entered. And it really lasts from 79 to maybe spring of 81. There's a lot of great May of 81 other ones that sound really similar to this. So that's what I was leaning towards. And then also just Jerry's tone. It still carries over a little bit from how it sounded in 78. Yeah.
When would you say that Jerry fully left that 78 sound behind?
I mean, relatively quickly, honestly, but after the Go to Heaven release and stuff like that. So we're talking about 80 and all of that. But in my personal opinion, that sort of energy really lasted until maybe summer of 82, fall of 82. And then after that, we're really seeing a different Jerry. 83 to 86 is a completely different vehicle than 79 to 82.
Right on, Joshua. Great breakdown. Todd, you also guessed 1981. You are also on to the next round. Anything you want to add to Joshua's breakdown?
I mean, I think Joshua was just spot on. You could definitely tell right away it was the early 80s, and the organ, I totally agree, was a real giveaway. Pushed really high up into the mix, and playing it a lot, really heavy on all the fills. And Jerry still sounds good and not sounds lean. And yeah, I put down 80, 81, 82 and listened and ended up going with 81.
Great. Thanks, Todd. I'm sorry, I should say, Todd is 52. He's from Wilmington, North Carolina. Todd is one step closer to the three-peat, which has only been done by Luke. I think Kyle won 2 in a row as well, but only Luke is three-peated, so Todd's looking to match that. No, Nate two-peated too. Sorry, Nate. Next closest was Matt. Matt guessed 1984. Matt is 44, and he's from Lawrenceville, New Jersey. Matt, why 84?
You know, it's hard to tell, like, with the audio quality coming through. At first, it was like real, like it sounded mute, like a little muffled, but then it was like everything was real forward in the mix. I almost was going to go with like late 80s, right? And then I heard the organ a little bit, and I'm like, no, that's earlier Brent, right? And I'm like, man, 80s are not my strongest point. It's like the decade that I listened to the least. Well, you know, like mid 80s. I'm like, it's not the 70s. It's not like 79. I don't think it. And then I heard Bobby singing, and I'm like, I just went with 84 just because I knew it was going to be early 80s. So I figured somewhere in the middle would be a good strategy. So that's what I went with.
Playing the game, Matt. Nice. You're on the next round.
All right.
Julian is on to the next round because he guessed 1970. Marty guessed 1992. Julian is 41. He's from LA. Julian, so you thought it was Pigpen?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of, yeah, maybe TC. I was like pretty puzzled, and I was thinking late 80s originally because I initially went to like Brent. The organ playing sounded like Brent, but then the quality of it sounded so old to me. And then the song ended, and I kind of panicked and just put what I thought was kind of like a safer choice than getting into the late 80s. But either way, I'm glad to be going to the next round. I don't feel like I entirely deserve it, but I'll take it.
Julian, do you spend a lot of time listening to like Primal Dead?
I go all around. I don't know if you guys have the Time Machine device. Have you heard of that?
No, or I haven't.
It's just like a little box that these dudes make that like runs off a Raspberry Pi, and it's got 3 knobs, month, date, and year, and you can just dial in the show and hook it up to your stereo. And it's got a really fun feature. You push year, and it just goes to like this day. So often I just do this day in history and kind of like see where that takes me. But I don't know. That's my main way that I listen. So I'm all over the place. I mean, I really have tried to keep it even. But I mean, probably like I probably prefer the 70s most of all, but I also really love like Spring 90 and 89. I'm a big 89 fan. So
nice. And you know what, Julian, I have seen that before, and I tried to buy it and it was sold out. And it looks like a guitar pedal kind of.
100%.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I hope they stock more. That sounds awesome. Marty, you guessed 1992. Marty is 57. He's from Yonkers. Marty, what'd you hear there?
Well, the funny thing was I thought I typed 1982. And after I hit enter, I looked, I was like, oh, fuck. But, you know, it is what it is. So I did hear Brent, and I actually waited to the end because I was waiting to hear who was going to be singing on the chorus. And although you really can't hear Brent on the chorus, I knew it wasn't, you know, Pigpen, and I knew it definitely wasn't Vince. So it is what it is.
Fuck, you're such a good sport, Marty. You're going straight to the Bad Connection redemption bracket, man. That definitely qualifies you. You'll have another shot at this. I am so sorry, but you're a real sport for not even. I would have been like, wait, like trying to, you know. How did you get into the Dead?
I actually got into the Dead my freshman year in high school, which was 79, and Brent just took over. Went to one of my friends in my class said, you got to go see this band. They're awesome. Went down to Madison Square Garden, took a little something that unfortunately allowed me to sleep well, but not see the show. So that was my first experience. with the Dead. But after that show, I was literally all in. I went to Nassau, I mean, in New York, I had, whole East Coast we'd do. And when went to college, forget it. That was, 83 through 87. And those years were just, forget it. Just unbelievable and nonstop touring, nonstop from Alpine, all East.
So even though you couldn't fully enjoy the show, you still knew, like, all right, there's something there. I need to go back.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the whole, the outside. I mean, even though it was the Garden, it was still, the circus was in town, and that to me, as I say to my friends, even to this day, I enjoy the tribe. We all have that great vibe together, and I only saw my friends on tour a lot. They were from California, from wherever, and we'd all see each other on the lot and in the shows.
Have you been able to keep up with them after 95?
Oh yeah, I mean, my friends and I, we're big live music fans. So, I actually have a house up in Bethel Woods, so which is near where Woodstock was, and there's a great outdoor venue there, and we go to concerts. So yeah, I mean, live music is just my thing.
It's cool. You can keep the band together even after the band broke up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Marty, you're a real sport. You took that better than I would have. I appreciate you doing it, and we'll see you in the Bad Connection Redemption bracket. Okay, Todd, Joshua, Julian, and Matt are on to the next round. Let's play this song.
I woke today, felt your side of bed, the covers were still warm where you'd been laying. You had gone. My heart was filled with dread. You might not be sleeping here again. But it's alright, 'cause I love you. That's not gonna change. Run me round, make me hurt again and again. But I am still singing that song, written in the letters of your name. The breath is starting to come. Boy, it surely looks like rain.
Looks Like Rain at War Memorial Coliseum on September 26th, 1973. The track was part of a 15-song first set. Todd and Matt both got it exactly. However, Joshua and Julian were both 1 year off in 72 and 74. So everyone advances. But let's hear the breakdowns. Todd, you guessed 73. You got it exactly. What'd you hear there?
Right away it sounded like 73 or 74. Probably the biggest giveaway is the vocals. They're using the 2-mic setup of the wall of sound, and it just ends up giving a really flat, compressed vocal sound with a really, someone mentioned a few weeks ago, a lisp. It's like that sibilance of an S. It really, really hangs there, kind of where it shouldn't, it seems like. One drummer, Jerry, was really low in the mix, right? So I'm always listening for how clear, and what his tone sounds like, but he was super, super low. It also kind of sounded like today's the anniversary of the 1973 show where they broke out like 7 or 8 songs. And it just had a real flat soundboard sort of quality like that one, Roscoe Maples Pavilion. Yeah, so 73.
Flat. That's a great observation. It was kind of flat.
Yeah, the vocals then, I guess it was brilliant to pair the mics together and make it out of phase so that they could have the wall of sound behind them, but they have to like get the vocals then back out of that, whatever they're doing to it. And it just ends up sounding kind of not dynamic and just EQ'd real flat like.
Nice pull, Todd. Matt, you also got 73. Nice pull by you as well. What'd you hear there?
So yeah, 73 is pretty much my favorite year. Just got this like warm quality, this analog quality to the sound of all the soundboards. And I think what did it for me was, one, Jerry was not playing pedal steel, which I think he played on the earlier versions in like 72, if I'm not mistaken. And you heard Keith playing the Fender Rhodes. So that kind of like narrowed it down. 73, 74. So I just went with 73 because it had like Todd had mentioned, just that sound. You know, I think today's the 50th anniversary, as he mentioned, the wall sound debut on that Roscoe Maple show. And 73 is it's just got like this warm, just feels like home. It's like my mom's meatloaf, you know, just kind of like warm feeling, you know, just that 73 does it for me, man. It's just like their peak. You know, they have the psychedelic, they have the jazz, they got everything going on that year. And just that it just sounds, that's the year. So
I've heard people say that Billy's drumming peaked in 73. Do you feel like that's the case?
I do love, I think the single drummer setup of this early 70s is my favorite. Nothing against Mickey. I mean, I love all the Dead years, but he just pulled it together in the 70s, you know, just by himself. And I can't say that the 73 was the peak. I don't pay attention too much to it because it's just all really good, but maybe that's what it is that just adds to 73 for me, that just does it. I don't know. I have to listen to it now. So it's a good point. I never heard that before, but yeah, maybe that is the secret sauce. So
yeah, I think it was Todd the other day said like it sounded like Billy had like 8 legs and 4 arms or whatever it was. You
Could
said,
be,
Todd.
yeah.
It was astute.
Yeah, I love that whole period, 72, 73, 74.
Yeah.
To me, that whole thing is the peak. That whole thing is the peak. And
100%.
I love early Mickey is awesome and crazy, and later Mickey, certainly in the 70s, is great. We can talk about the 80s and the 90s and today, but that time period where it was one person behind the kit, Billy just is the jam. I mean, he's a jazz drummer ultimately playing rock and roll, and he takes the cake.
Yep, for sure.
Awesome. So yeah, like I said, everyone's on to the next round, including Joshua, who guessed 1972. Joshua, you sent your answer in pretty quickly. Only 1 year off, obviously. Why'd you feel like it was 72?
I mean, it really couldn't have been anything other than 72 or 73 because they only played it for those 2 years. So like, I felt confident that like, I honestly couldn't like, maybe it's just the quality like through like, you know, like Zoom or like, you know, just like how the recording is, but it sounded like a little more muddy than like what a lot of 73 recordings. Maybe it's just because I'm really lucky and I've been listening to like a lot of great stuff that's been put on the archive. But, you know, I went like 50-50. It could be either 72 or 73. So I just felt like 72 was a shot. But, you know, close enough.
Nice breakdown, Joshua. Julian, you guessed 74. Anything you want to add?
I mean, yeah, I love what everybody had to say. Really good breakdown. I mean, I was kind of going between 73 and 74. At the last minute, I went 74 because, like, just as you were fading out, I thought I maybe heard another drummer. So I kind of wanted to hedge my bets in case it was like later 70s in terms of getting a little closer to that. But I heard what everyone else heard, the one drummer, and something about like, I don't know enough about Billy's gear, but something about this, I feel like his snare is really tight during these years. It's like and then the grooves he plays is part of what gives away the single drummer to me. He gets to like swing it a little bit more, you know, because he's not having to double up with Mickey, you know? So I went 74, but I thought maybe 73. Oh, yeah, I also thought Wall of Sound because I just couldn't hear Donna at all. And I kind of made an assumption that maybe she got turned down because I know that often she had well, no, I love Donna. I just know that she sometimes struggled to like have adequate monitoring during the Wall of Sound, and that the effect would just be that she would sort of get like turned down. So that was sort of one other clue I was working off of.
So Donna's levels were a casualty of the Wall of Sound?
Yeah, because when I'm thinking of like a Looks Like Rain, I really like I'm waiting for her harmonies on the You Were Gone part, you know? And I didn't hear them, so that was one other clue I was working off of. But
Cool. I'm really glad everyone's on to the next round because this is a fucking great group. Let's play the next song. The guesses are in. It was Big River at Virginia Tech on April 14th, 1978. Bob Dylan and the band recorded a cover of the song in 1967, which was released as part of the Basement Tapes in 2014. So Joshua and Todd got it exactly, 1978. They are both on in the next round. Joshua, start with you. Nice pull. What'd you hear there?
I heard a lack of Keith. Maybe again, that's just me from my end. But either that or he was just really copying Jerry's chords, and not really doing the unique creative cowboy stuff that like on this exact same song, if we go back to like 71 or 72, I mean, he was tearing it apart. And I just didn't hear that. And then also just the sound quality in general, like Phil's bass, the way it came through, that's a sound that you really only get from like 76 to 78. And like, again, like the tinniness on like Bob's guitar, again, that's like, just by like recordings, it really fell between like 76 to 78, like that range.
So would you say that Keith chasing Jerry was just laziness?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we all know that he was spiraling down like a heroin and coke habit, like at this point, like pretty bad. 78 is where like Keith is like really falling off. I mean, like he just does not contribute. Like my favorite Keith period is personally like 76. He really comes through after the hiatus, and like the band sound in that year is like really full. Like you hear everybody's contributions. You don't really get that in 78. Jerry's coked out of his mind, like plowing his way through the song. So is Bobby, and Keith is just sort of nodding his way out and like disappeared by this point. And like yeah, that's really what you're hearing, and you hear that all the way up until they leave the band in 79.
Excellent breakdown. Thanks, Joshua. Todd, you also got 78. Another one you got exactly. On to the next round. Yeah, what'd you hear?
As soon as it came on, I thought 1974, because it's just like a quality to those recordings. And then I really quickly heard two drummers. I heard distorted guitar from Jerry, and I heard, like Josh was talking, a real clean tone from Bob Weir. That's the sort of that Ibanez late 70s sound. So I jumped to the late 70s, and then I'm trying to figure out if I'm actually, is it sort of early Brent kind of stuff I'm actually hearing 79. But just like Joshua, Keith is just laying out, man. He's letting everybody else put it together and move on, and he's throwing a little something in that's on key every now and then, but he's not playing like he used to at all. And that combined with Jerry's guitar sound and just put me right in that 78 pocket. Sometimes in 78 they were just cooking, and it's just all that and more, and sometimes they maybe weren't. And it's all good, but that just sounded exactly like 78 to me.
It's crazy you can pick out his drug use on the track, and that is also why, if you can hear it, like you can, Todd, that this band is so fascinating to listen to, because you're getting a song, but you're also getting like a piece of a story.
And it's more than one person in all the different eras. I mean, that whole ends up holding true for a number of different people throughout the different eras, which is sad, but also just fascinating.
Well, Matt guessed 1981, so he's on the next round. Julian guessed 1970, so he's eliminated. We'll start with Matt. Matt, what'd you hear there?
So, I've been listening to the show for a few weeks now, right? And, I'm playing along with the show, and I found the best bet for me would be to go with my gut, right? So what did my gut say? My gut said 78, because Bobby's guitar, that compressor sound that he's got on there, instant giveaway. But I couldn't hear Keith, and I couldn't hear any keyboard, so I couldn't hear Brent, right? I don't know if I was just, I couldn't hear it, and I'm like, man, I don't know. They're kind of fast, too. So I'm like, early 80s, a lot of coke going on, maybe. And I'm like, shit, I got to go somewhere in the middle. 81. And I'm like, man, I should have went with 78. I knew it was 78 just by that guitar tone, just by Bobby. And go with my gut so that's what I got to do from this point on now that I'm still on. Thank you.
Cool, Matt. You're on the next round.
All right.
Julian's 1970, going back to 70. What'd you hear there?
Yeah, I mean, I think I maybe went too hard with like the overall sound quality, which may or may not be sort of like coming through the Zoom filter, but it sounded just kind of raw to me. And Jerry's guitar tone reminded me of some like kind of earlier, fuzzier stuff. But the main thing was I heard two drummers, and Jerry's voice sounded kind of sprightly to me. So I went early, I kind of like I bought into my own bullshit. So
how did you get into the Dead, Julian?
Well, I've always been like pretty Dead positive. I've never I'm not one of those people that like ever, some people get into it later in life and because they had like a problem with it. I was always like into like some Jerry Garcia band stuff and a few Dead songs. And then really it was like my buddy Patrick indoctrinated me. He just became my guru. He took me to like a Dead and Company show a while back. And he's like the guy that like, I'll be like, hey, like, hit me like with like, hit me when I was starting, I was like, hit me with some other Scarlet Fires. And like in 5 seconds, he sent me like 3 dates. And I was like, okay, this is dope. So he's just been there for me. He recommended, he got me on the So Many Roads book, which I really enjoyed. So I wouldn't say I'm like a pandemic Deadhead. It's definitely grown as I've had like sort of more time at home to like listen and become obsessed with. Some people bake sourdough. Some people get really into the Dead. So I've just kind of like, used these last few years have been just like an increasing interest and just like there's like little steps along the way. It's like first you like some couple shows and then you start to realize, then there's like this, I don't know, there's like this collector aspect too, being like, oh, can I find like my favorite version of this song? And that's, I don't know, that's kind of like appealed to me. That's sort of like a collecting aspect, even though I'm not collecting physical things, just collecting songs in my head.
Do you have like a list or like a playlist of those songs? Like, do you keep track of them?
Yeah, I mean, I have like a list going. I mean, I do collect records as well, but I sort of like crapped out on that just because I know they're doing all these reissues of the shows on vinyl, which I think is really cool, but it's just like too much flipping. They sound great, but it's just like, you can't flip that much. That's just too much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I'm fascinated by the Patrick archetype. Is Patrick like, does he have good taste in other shit too? Why did you immediately be like, all right, if Patrick recommended it, I'm going for it?
Yeah, I mean, he's just a really good buddy of mine, like loving guy, like really awesome dude, and like we've connected on a lot of music stuff pre, him dead pilling me. So yeah, I just really trusted him, I really did. We actually saw Jazz is Dead together a couple weeks ago. I don't know if any of you guys have caught that, but it's with Steve Kamak, and it was cool. It was a really nice vibe. But yeah, no, we've always just like been into music. So when he kind of like presented me with the path, I took it,
So Jazz is Dead is instrumental, right?
It's instrumental, although the audience ends up singing. There was like a really cool moment where they were doing Franklin's and like everyone's kind of like, people started like tentatively singing the chorus, you know, and everyone was like not sure if it was like respectful or not. But then Steve was just like, he like gestured being like, do it. And I thought that was like a really special moment. And then everybody just like went hard, and it was like a really special moment. So I don't know, I just take any opportunity to see people play that repertoire in like a small space. I'm going to go see Melvin Seals and JGB later this month. I'm stoked that Kadlicek is in it. You know, I think that'll be fun.
I love that people were tentative and looking to be respectful, and I love that Kimok was like, go for it. You know,
it was so cool. It was, you know, it was kind. That's all I can say. He was kind.
Thanks, Julian. Thanks for being here.
I'm gonna mute and listen along and watch this this masterclass. So go, you guys.
All right. Todd, Joshua, and Matt are competing for 2 spots in the best of 3 series to see who wins the Bout Half Past Dead prize pack. Let's play the song.
1940, Christmas Eve, and the moon over town. Baker Lee met Billy DeLine, then he blew that poor boy down. Do you know what he shot him for? What do you make of that? Billy DeLine threw lucky dice, wouldn't Stagger Lee's dead tonight. Just scared to stay Lee's a bad man, and he shot my Billy D. I hope I'll get him, give the job to me. Town, I won't come back alive. Not only is that mother being next to 45.
Okay. The guesses are in. It was Stagger Lee at Saratoga Performing Arts Center on June 27th, 1985. The Grateful Dead's version is based on a folk song that was first recorded in 1923. Stagger Lee was a pimp based out of St. Louis. So Joshua and Todd both got it exactly. Matt was 1 year off in 1984. That's a tough one, Matt. I'm sorry. Okay, Todd, let's start with you. You're on to the finals. What'd you hear there?
I heard 1985 immediately. I wavered as to whether it could be 86. Jerry's guitar during this time frame has a very, very specific sound. He's at his highest weight throughout the 80s. His voice is a deep, much, much deeper, much bassier, much gravelier. His fingers are extremely heavy. He's got a heavy hand, so his notes are all a little sharp. He uses a lot of vibrato where he's always moving his fingers up and down, and it's accentuated during that time period. And when I was tape trading growing up and listening to the Dead, we just had a lot of 1985, 1986 in our collection for whatever reason. I love that era. A lot of people diss on it. There's a lot of vocal flubs and a lot of missed cues, but in between all that, there's just some serious magic. So yeah, it sounded like 1985. I was wondering if it was the Richmond, the fall of 85 shows, but I guess it was summer at Saratoga.
So you don't mind vocal flubs?
Not at all. I mean, we talked a couple of weeks ago about sort of a punk ethos to the Grateful Dead, and this is a band that did not like rehearse, right? This is a band that went out on stage and surfed the wave live in front of everybody every night, and that's pretty punk. It's pretty punk to sell out a stadium for 3 nights in a row and not even have a set list and not talk to each other about much and just walk on stage, and if somebody starts a riff, you just play something. And so the occasional vocal flub, totally fine by me. And, the song with the vocal flub might have the guitar solo in it or the ending breakdown, rave up that just smokes. So you got to give it all a chance.
Cool. Thanks, Todd. You're on to the finals. Joshua, you sent in 1985 very quickly again. Very impressive. What'd you hear?
Agreed with everything that Todd said. First of all, with just like again, like Jerry's voice, also Brent's keys, the way they come off in the mid 80s, around 84, like whatever synthesizers and like piano, like gadgets that he had, like they had sort of like rounded out. So like 84, 85, 86, first part of 86 anyway, like he sounds pretty similar. And yeah, also just Stagger Lee is one of those songs where they they put it on hiatus a bunch when they were first playing it. If I'm not mistaken, like it was like debuted in like 78 or 79, and they put it on ice till 82 for like 2 shows, and they put it on ice again until like 85. So it's one of those songs that like again, there's only like a couple of like years where it could really be like played throughout, and you can guess for that. And yeah, I mean, I was honestly teetering more on 86, but 85 just seemed like there were more. You know, he was in a coma for most of 86, so there seemed to be more options in 85. That seemed like the best bet.
Wow, what a great combination of playing the game, knowing your facts, and listening as well. Nice, Joshua. You're on to the finals. Well deserved. Matt, you ran into some real dogs here. You were 1 year off, 84. I mean, there's nothing really to correct, but what'd you hear?
So I was listening a couple weeks ago. One of the guys, he was kind of like a Brent hater, and he mentioned that his synth keys sounded like the Doogie Howser theme.
Oh yeah, that was John.
I don't know. We got some younger guys in the audience here, and I don't know if they ever saw the show, but I grew up with that show, right? In the late 80s, 90s, and immediately I'm like, oh man, that's definitely like early. Now I don't know my 80s as well as Joshua does. Like it's my least listened to decade. But I'm like, Jerry's voice is like, he's been chasing the dragon, man. He's struggling, and he's and as they mentioned that he's probably struggling, weight in the fingers and arthritis and all that stuff kicking in, and I was just going with like 84. I don't think I really even listened to 85 at all, if maybe only a few shows years back, but I just went with 84 based on that. Didn't know they didn't play Staggerly in 84, but it was just a guess on the sound. That's all.
I'd imagine there are a few people that have that in their back pocket.
Yeah.
Especially for a song like Staggerly.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, how'd you get into the Dead?
I was never a sports kid growing up. My dad was a music guy. He listened to a lot of jazz, and he got me into music early on, took me to a lot of jazz shows. And then around high school, this classic rock station came out in the New York area called Q1043. Started listening to a lot of classic rock. Jerry died. And my best friend then, he was a huge Deadhead. So I'm like, man, Steve's going to be real upset. So I said, Steve, what's this all about? Like, what's the Dead? I know like a couple songs, Casey Jones, whatever. So he lent me, I think American Beauty, and I liked it a lot. And then my environmental science teacher in high school lent me 100 Year Hall, the CD. It was like, from Europe 72 tour. And then it kicked in, then it clicked. China Rider. I was like, oh, so this is what it's supposed to be. And then from that point on, I got on the bus. And unfortunately got into him after Jerry died. Because Jerry died, I got into him, sad to say. But, I went to a bunch of further shows in the late 90s. I big into Fish, saw Fish like 60 times. And, the whole jam band scene. But the Dead are just where it's at for me. They're just the perfect blend of Americana, jazz, rock, all that stuff. And it's the perfect music by far.
So Fish scratches that itch for you?
Yeah. That, a lot of people, started touring with Fish after the Dead stopped touring in 95, 96, around there. And, I started to try to amass, because cassettes were big back then in the, late 90s. I tried to amass like a tape collection. There was this place near Freehold, New Jersey, where I was living, that it was almost like a library. You couldn't sell bootlegs. That was like illegal, and the band frowned upon it, right? But it was like a library. You could go there and take out tapes and then make copies of them and return them and then donate tapes. So this place called Tish's Place. It was like not a head shop, but like a Grateful Dead kind of boutique-y store. It sold tie-dyes and Relics magazine and stuff like that. And I used to try to tape stuff off the Grateful Dead hour, and built up some tapes from that. But and then just kind of never looked back. Just was always into them since. So.
Well, thanks so much for doing
Well, I
it. Matt.
appreciate it. I'm going to hang out and watch the rest of the game. Thanks for having me. This is like it was almost my party trick. Some of my friends are like, man, this guy, he can listen to like just the audio and tell you what year and tour it's from, and they'd put me on the spot, and I do like some stuff at you know, like last week it was a poker game and they did the same thing. They're like, here Matt, close your eyes, listen to this, and you know, I didn't do too well, but the last show I listened to of your podcast, I got every one of them right. I'm like, oh man, I'm ready. I'm set.
Holy shit, that was a tough show too.
Yeah.
Cool,
So,
Matt.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks,
it.
man.
All right.
Well, I'm really excited to see this one. Todd and Joshua, you are on to a best of 3 series to see who wins the Bout Half Past Dead prize pack. Let's play the song.
Go down too deep in her, put your money in your shoes. 'Cause women get deep in her, got them deep in her blues. Oh, sweet mama, your daddy's got them deep in her blues. Oh, sweet mama, your daddy's got them deep in her blues. Go down too deep in her, put your money in your place. Let it get deep in her, they won't give a man a chance. Oh, sweet mama, your daddy's got them deep in her blues. Oh, sweet mama, your daddy's got them deep in her blues.
Okay. Deep Ellum Blues at Dane County Coliseum on December 3rd, 1981. The song was performed 29 times in 1970 and 20 times in all other years combined between 66 and 83. Joshua got it exactly 1981. Todd was 1 year off on 1982. Joshua, that was a great poll. How did you figure that one out?
2 things. One of them is a big coincidence. I don't know if you know Hunter Siemens, but he makes a bunch of matrices of shows. And I think like last year he did the entirety of the winter of 81. So like those exact shows, like from that run that you mentioned, like from that show that you mentioned, that run. And it had like a lot of deep elements, I think like 2 or 3. So I was like, oh, you know, this sounded familiar. But also the main thing is Brent's keys. When they played it in 80, his keys and like the synthesizer like just sounded different. I don't know the exact details, but I'm sure that you can listen, you know, you can hear the same thing.
I don't think I hear the same thing of anything you hear, Joshua, but I guess everyone needs to know, how did you get into the Dead?
It was kind of a big accident. I don't come from a family of Deadheads or anything. So it was really just like a big coincidence. I was big into like country, like classic country. So Jennings, Johnny Cash, you know, like really like that sort of stuff. And the song that turned me on, I think, was Ramble on Rose from Europe 72. And then the album that did it for me, like the first full show, was One from the Vault from 75. That's just like the best, you know, cleanest show ever performed, arguably. But yeah. And then that was, I think, around 2018. And it was just like a very slow spiral of where it was really just like listening to shows, not really attending anything until after the pandemic. So I think Wolf Bros at the Greek Theater in Berkeley was like my first show of like any like Dead related kind, so to speak. And so I've just been like chasing that dragon in and of itself.
So do you like get into specific eras and explore them? Do you hop around? Like how's your taste evolved?
Yeah, so I mean, the journey starts with Spotify. Then you find out about the archive, and then you're like, holy shit, right? You know, everything is available to you for free. It really was like jumping around eras. I'm a big fan of 91. Like Bruce and Vince, I think that's just a fantastic, like, I hate when people say that spring of 90 was the last peak for the Dead. I think that's like total bullshit. You know, Jerry was still kicking and running, and Bruce really added a lot like in that period. So like I really centered around, you know, like late 89, like post coma, up until like 91, 92. And then, you know, really kicking it with like 71, 72, 73, 74, single drummer, and like really like bouncing around. And yeah, I mean, at this point, I can say I might have touched base on everything, but that's like 4 years in the making. You know, like a year ago, I couldn't have told you that I had like the same understanding of 69 like I do now, because I would just avoid it. Because I mean, it sounds totally different.
And then something just clicks and you're like, all right, it's time to check out 69.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you slowly understand that it's like an evolution, right? And that like it all is very similar, obviously. I mean, the core 4 or 5 is the same for the whole 30 years, but like the sound changes, the time changes, and the band, you know, like they fed off their audience, they fed off of their surroundings. And so like you hear that, and you hear that very clearly.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. Todd, you guessed 1982, 1 year off. What'd you hear there?
I knew that they played Deep Ellum a bunch in 82. And it sounded like, certainly the early 80s, it sounded like 82 to me, just kind of the overall quality of the mix. I thought at first that I heard Brent's organ up pretty high, and that made me feel much more like 82. And then I hear what Joshua heard at the end, which was he switched it over to a little bit more of an electric keyboard sound for sure. But my gut for Deep Ellum has just always been 82 for some reason. And I love the idea that, you know, they played it at the acoustic shows in 1980 and then tried it out electric a few times after that. I always thought that was pretty cool. So, you know, it was December 3rd of 81 and I guessed 82. So I feel good about that. But man, Josh was pretty smoking dialed in on all this stuff. So the competition is quite stiff and there's not a lot of room for error.
There's definitely not. Okay, Todd, you need to do what you did last week and come back from a 1-0 hole to even the series and force a game 3. Joshua, you just need one more to win the Bout Half Past Dead prize pack. Let's play the song.
I know you rider gonna miss me when I'm gone. I know you rider gonna miss me when I'm gone. Gonna miss your baby, running in your lay down last night, but I could not take my rest. Lay down last night, but I could not take my rest. My mind was wandering like the wild geese in the wind.
All right, the guesses are in. I Know You Rider at Fillmore East on February 13th, 1970. The track was part of a 5-song first set that started with China Cat and ended with Smokestack Lightning. There were 3 sets in the show and an encore of And We Bid You Goodnight. I did not fool either of these guys. They both guessed 1970. Todd, we'll start with you. How'd you suss out 1970?
Could hear right away that it was early 70s. I was maybe guessing between late 69 and early 70s. Jerry's playing a Fender Stratocaster. It's got that nice country twang sound to it. Phil is still singing. It's got that real high pitched part in I Know You Rider. and it sounds like some 70s tapes that I had. I almost went 69 just because Phil was singing, and I don't know when he stopped singing, but the Jerry's guitar tone is too clean and too Stratocaster like, so I grabbed 1970.
When did he move on from the Stratocaster?
He did a bunch of shuffling in the 69, 70, 71. He plays Gibson Les Paul, Gibson SG, Fender Stratocaster. He plays a cool guitar that was made by Rick Turner called the Peanut in 71. And then by 72, he's, and I think it's by late 71, he's solid on the Stratocaster, and it's the Alligator Strat given to him by Graham Nash.
What do you think he was looking for when he was switching between those guitars?
Yeah, I mean, they have a totally different feel. They're literally a different length. Like the length of the instrument is different between a Gibson and a Fender. A lot of people out there like maybe the sound of a Gibson, but they like the way that the Fender feels in their hands. Other people, it's the opposite. So he kept the classic Fender Stratocaster 3 single coil pickup sound for quite some time. And that's when Wolf was delivered. It had basically Stratocaster electronics, and they ended up rewiring it in the long run big time. But the early 73, 74 Wolf stuff is all a sort of a classic Stratocaster electronics design on that guitar.
Well, thank you, Todd. Joshua also guessed 1970. Nice work, Joshua. Yeah, what'd you hear there?
Honestly, just, everything that Todd said. I don't know as much about guitars as Todd does, which I find extremely impressive. But it really is that like late 69, early 70 sound. I could have sent you 69 and been out of this round. So it was really just a lucky guess between the two.
Cool. All right, same situation. Joshua needs this one to get the Bout Half Past Dead prize pack. Todd needs it to even the series. Let's play the song.
I was drinking last night with a biker, and I showed him a picture of you. Said, pal, get to know you like her. Seemed like the least I could do. When he's charging his chopper up and down your carpeted hall, you'll think by contrast I'm quite proper. Never mind how I stumble and fall. Never mind how I stumble and fall. You imagine me sipping champagne from your mood, where it tasted your elegant pride. You're going to hell in a bucket, babe. But at least I'm enjoying the ride. At least I'm enjoying the ride. Hey, at least I'm enjoying the ride.
Okay. Hell in a Bucket at the San Francisco Civic Auditorium on January 29th, 1987. In 1992, the San Francisco Civic Auditorium was named after Bill Graham, who died in 1991. So Todd guessed 1986. He was closer. 1 year off. Joshua guessed 1984, who is mortal, it seems. Todd, 1 year off. What'd you hear there?
I'm super surprised that was 87 because post-coma stuff is usually really, really clean, played extremely well. They actually maybe had rehearsed a bunch. That had a big flubby section in the start where they just couldn't lock in together. That's pretty typical of 86. Also the crazy echo stuff on the vocals that turned into a real high-pitched squeal. That's Dan Healy at the soundboard. He was eventually, I believe, let go for the antics, those types of antics. I've heard that on a ton of 86 tapes, both the echo and the squealy. I was not familiar with that from 87 at all. So yeah, it sounded like my old 1986 tapes for sure.
Wait, so what exactly was Healy doing?
He takes, but he's in charge at the soundboard. He's got the vocal feed of what the audience is hearing out of the PA, and he puts crazy echo on it. And in that case, you know, he put like some sort of doubler on it and played it up a couple of octaves. So Weir sounds like Chipmunk for a couple seconds.
So you're just fucking with Bob Weir, essentially.
I mean, there's a lot of folks out there that would suggest, yes, Healy was just messing with Bob. Healy says he was, but from what I've read from, you know, folks who maybe are in the know, Healy was just messing around in general. But I think the two of them went at each other pretty hard.
And eventually he got fired.
Eventually he was no longer behind the soundboard and no longer associated with them, as far as I know. There's people out there who know quite a bit about it, quite a bit more about it than I do. But yeah, that's my understanding.
Well, Todd ties up the series 1-0. Joshua, you 1984, 3 years off. What'd you hear there?
Yeah, I agree with Todd on the quality of the tape. It's not really what I expect from 87. But, you know, I guess that's just like how it came through. And also, again, like I really listen to the keys when making like most of my guesses. And Brent's keys are still like in that like mid 80s sound. By like 88, 89, he'd have a little bit of, again, I wish I knew the names of all the synthesizers that he used. But there's like a little bit of like a different sound that happens like when after Jerry gets back from his coma, but clearly like it's not kicked in yet. And also Jerry's not as confident, you know, usually he's tearing up the song a lot more by like 88, 89, 90.
Okay. This keeps getting more and more impressive as we go. The series is now tied. Yeah, next one gets it. Let's play the song.
The sun come crying up the night, through all the broken dreams and shattered views. Still a blue. Still a blue.
You can tell by my laugh where this is going. Stella Blue at Augusta Civic Center on September 2nd, 1979. The lyric, "Blue Light, Cheap Hotels," was inspired by Robert Hunter writing the song itself in a cheap hotel in 1970. They both got 1979. Joshua, what'd you hear there? You submitted pretty quickly.
Two things. Brent is really high in the mix for Stella Blue, like really high. And that just means that that pretty much narrowed it down to like to 79 or early 80. Because, you know, I'm pretty sure by request, they turned him up in the soundboard mix really high, you know, just to see how he would sound and mix with the band. And also, again, the way that Phil's bass just like moves, That's really like a carryover from like 76, 77, 78. So yeah.
How do you think it moves? What do you could you elaborate on that?
It's really hard for me to describe, but the best way, if you hear recordings of Scarlet Begonias from 76 or 77, the way that Phil's bass just sort of like it, like he doesn't just play the note, it's almost like he stretches it out. I wish I knew more about like music and like the actual like way like he plays the instruments and like the way the notes are played, but like that's like the sound that's sort of carried across. And I think that's a Betty Cantor Jackson, like the way that she just like mixed that in. I might be totally wrong, but there's just that way that that bass carries over that isn't really seen until we get into like the really nice like Ultra Matrix recordings from like the late 80s and early 90s.
Todd, anything you want to add to that one?
I wrote down 79 or 80 right away. Brent's keys are kind of a dead giveaway, just like Josh said, up high in the mix and with the sort of a tinny bell-like sort of chimey sort of sound. They were not playing very confidently. They were trying to feel it out, find the tempo, find the groove, and then some of the key points that they should hit, they're missing. So I figure it's early in Brent's time and they're just sort of still feeling stuff out. So 79.
Awesome. Well, I feel like one of you guys has to be off by a year. Sooner or later, could be later. We could be here for a while. I kind of hope we are. All right, let's play the song.
Just like Mojo, just like Billy Sunday, shotgun, big time band. Just like New York City, just like Jericho, pace the halls and climb the walls and get out when they blow.
Well, we have a winner. I'm sorry I had to end it on a 90s song. I almost didn't. I have a set list prepared, and I almost didn't press them. Like, I could just watch these guys go between like 70 and 86 or 87 for 4 hours, but it was Ramble on Rose at Capitol Center on March 17th, 1993. Billy Sunday helped found the American Evangelical Movement after retiring as a professional baseball player. So that's the Billy Sunday shout out. All right. Todd was closer, 1991. Joshua, I guess, 1990. Congratulations to you both. No one has lost here today. But Todd, what'd you hear?
I shout out to Joshua. This has been just outrageous and super fun. And he's just ridiculously impressive. And I want to go out and have a cup of coffee or a beer with him.
I'll take you up on that.
So I thought 92 or 91. This is not, late 90s Dead is not my time frame. But I heard Bruce Hornsby, or at least I thought I heard Bruce Hornsby, and the bass is super clear, very articulate, very, very deep, and that is that's something that I associate with more like 1991. You said it was 93?
Yes.
Yeah, so usually by I didn't hear very much of Bob Weir's guitar, and by about 93, he's got a snarly tone. He's even playing a metal James Trussart guitar sometimes. He's usually high in the mix and really kind of doing a lot of antics everywhere. So I was definitely thinking it was 91 or 92, and I thought that Bob Weir's guitar was calm enough and Jerry sounded good enough that I would go older and throw out 91.
Calmness. Nice pull. Yeah, Todd, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. Joshua, I'm out of superlatives, but that was insane. Congratulations on doing what you just did. What did you hear there? You guessed 1990.
Yeah, thank you. I didn't hear Bruce, which was the confusing thing. Or not that I didn't hear Bruce, I didn't hear Vince, or like the Vince sound that you associate from like the 90, 91, 92 era of where he's like the more synthy backing, like piano, like he's more for the playing along the chords and stuff like that. And I just took a shot in the dark. I mean, it was either 90 or 91. It was one of those two. And I just assumed that could have been one of those shows. There's a handful of shows from both 90 and 91 where it's only Vince. So that felt like it could be a good guess, but it was 93 and March 17th. So yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier that you like discovered one era at a time. Where did the 90s come in that evolution?
I would say probably like near the, like more in the first half for sure. I mean, again, my main focus has really been on like with that like era. It's really like late 90 up until like 91, early 92, because I mean, Bruce just added a lot to the band. I mean, you can hear it, and you can also just see it like in the videos. Like he and Jerry are having a great time, and he pushed Jerry past Brent's death. Like that's the only way to say it. And there's just a really I find there to be a lot of compelling shows. And honestly, 91 as a whole year is very consistent. It might not be the greatest. Like, I'm not saying that all the shows are 5 stars, but all the shows are, at least in my opinion, like 3 stars or more for the most part, which says a lot, because you don't really get that consistency in like 88. I avoid 88, to be honest. There's not really that consistency that you see again in like 89, 90, or 91.
I love that description of Bruce pushing Jerry past Brent's death. That's a great way to put it. Joshua, congratulations, man. You were great. You'll be back on the show at some point in some way, I promise, if you're willing to do it.
More than happy to.
Okay. Well, congratulations. And Todd, that was a well-earned three-peat.
Good gosh. Yeah. Seriously, that was epic. And hats off to all you guys. And Joshua, keep listening. Keep doing this.
Thank you.
All right. For more amazing games like this one, subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For all of our social media links and stuff like that, including our new YouTube channel, actually, go to guestoftheyear.net. And if you want to be a contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at guestoftheyearshow@gmail.com. Thanks so much to Bout Half Past Dead for providing the prize pack. Check out the show notes for the link there. Thanks to Mason for curating the prize packs at From the Lot. Shout out to Dylan for drawing the posters, 30,000 feet. Thank you so much for listening. For the fun facts, I relied heavily on Dead.net, Dead Disc, and Grateful Dead of the Day and their commenters, so thank you so much to them. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our 3-time champ, Todd. And to our other contestants, thanks so much for playing, and remember, it's all one song anyways.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.